Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gavin Coopey, and I'm your host today. Very pleased to be here to welcome you to the FIA webinar series. So today's webinar, I'm particularly excited to be hosting because we're talking to the 2018 FIA Conference keynote speaker, Jack Sim. Someone who is commonly just known as Mr. Toilet, and we're going to find out why. I'm very excited to do this because basically I've met Jack at the International Fundraising Conference in Holland and heard him speak. I know that he's got an inspiring story and an inspiring way of telling it. He's going to be with us at the 2018 FIA Conference in Sydney from 7th to 9th of March. And in fact, he's the closing plenary session. And it'll be great to have him there. He's also going to help out on a panel talking about the future of charity and what that looks like and giving his perspective on that, which I'll be hosting, and that should be a really interesting session as well. Just a quick reminder, early bird registrations for the conference close next week on Friday the 15th of December. So make sure you register before the 15th to save over $400 on your ticket. And special thanks to our webinar and FIA sponsor Go Fundraise for all their financial and in-kind support of FIA throughout the year. This webinar series just wouldn't be possible without them, so thanks very much for that. The FIA will place a recording of today's webinar on the conference website, and the link will also be emailed to all of you who've registered so that you can have a look at that again. We'll be taking questions throughout the webinar, so please feel free to submit a question for Jack in the question box on your screen. And a bit more about Jack. Jack is the founder of the World Toilet Organization, and he's joining us today from his base in Singapore. Formerly a successful businessman, Jack became a social entrepreneur and broke through the global taboos around toilets and sanitation issues. Since founding the World Toilet Organization in 2001, Jack has amassed a global movement of governments, UN agencies and activists to improve sanitation issues for people worldwide. He has his own very personal approach. He is very engaging in the way that he does it, and there's a lot to learn from his experience, with a particular sort of own personal brand of powerful advocacy, education and innovation technology. So thank you. Welcome, Jack. We're delighted to welcome you to this webinar, to have you along on the conference, and really to have us here today to share your story with us. So thank you very much for taking the time to join us today.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. So, Gavin, you can shoot with all your questions, and I will answer all of them.
Well, Jack, just give us a little bit of a potted history about how you've ended up where you are, and kind of the kind of things that you've learned along the way that you think will be useful for all of us to be hearing.
So at the age of 40, I realized that the human lifespan is roughly about 80. So I've spent already half of my life doing business and making some money. However, if you are going to die, you want to do something more purposeful and more meaningful. And that is like 14,600 days when you take 40 years multiplied by 365. So there's not much days left to be alive and to be useful. So I felt that I have to do something that is neglected, that's important. And I found toilet. It's a taboo. People couldn't talk about toilet because it's embarrassing, and they couldn't get themselves to admit that they actually produce a pungent smell, and which is also natural. You know, you can't even choose not to go to the toilet, but we're in a state of denial. And because of that, we don't speak, and whatever you don't speak, you can't improve. So the reality is that there are 2.5 billion people who don't have a toilet, not even having a toilet. So they go to the bushes, they poop into the river, they get raped, women get raped because they are naked and vulnerable while they are defecating or urinating. And the pollution of the river with full of feces contaminate the drinking water, and children die every day. Every day about 2,200 children die every day from diarrhea, just from these waterborne diseases. And it's amazing that you can actually prevent all this just by having toilet and treated excreta, but people don't speak about it. So I say, all right, I'm going to start it with calling ourselves the other WTO, the World Toilet Organization, and play a pun on the World Trade Organization. And by doing so, the media gets very excited because the media wants to have a readership, and this kind of humor on a subject so intimate like toilets is actually something that sells news. So, you know, every agenda that you guys as fundraiser fight for, you compete with each other for the limelight in the media, for visibility, so that people can understand that your cause is important. So you could be doing like cancer or HIV or child abuse or climate change, energy, clean energy, and all that, right? But you compete not only with one another, you compete with movie star scandals, divorce, plane crash, war, Donald Trump's tweeting. So, you know, if you are toilet, if you are shit, how do you compete with all this big agenda? Humor is a very, very powerful tool. And when we make ourselves funny, we get a lot of media. And then attention go into sanitation, and eventually politicians says, wow, if this guy talk shit and he's got so much coverage, we got about like 3 billion eyeball outreach per year, 3 billion. Any company would like to do that, but it's also free of charge, right? So politicians start to come in and promise the people toilet to win votes. And they win elections, promising toilets. So Jairam Ramesh from India, a union minister, promises 32 million toilets, and he won. And then recently, Prime Minister Modi is promised everyone a toilet. So this is the biggest building program now. They're building 110 million toilets in India. And then last week, President Xi Jinping of China declared the toilet revolution of China for tourism toilet and rural toilet. So can you imagine that an advocacy that legitimized a taboo subject that was originally very embarrassing is now very, very legitimate, very official. So in between this, there's another event that we created. It's called the United Nations World Toilet Day, 19th of November. And we just hosted World Toilet Summit in Melbourne on 20th of November, 2 weeks ago. And we presented our founding day to the United Nations, and all 193 countries' leaders agreed unanimously to adopt our founding day as the official UN World Toilet Day. So once this is official and signed by all these ambassadors of every country, then it becomes very, very legitimate. Now every year, every country is celebrating World Toilet Day. So this is the brief summary of the success story of how effective advocacy using humor, leveraging everybody else to come on board. And along the way, we attract movie stars like Matt Damon, Salman Khan, Vidya Balan, and recently India started making toilet movie called Toilet: A Love Story by Akshay Kumar, and this was a bestseller. So I'll tell you more as the question come up. Yeah. Gavin, you have a next question for me? I think he's offline. I'll continue talking. So
Sorry, I am here, Jack. Sorry.
yes, yes.
Just going
So
back to the beginning, in a way, what was it that can you remember what initially prompted you around toilets and them being the sort of the big solution? Was there one moment where you had a revelation around that?
I think the revelation was that I was already 40 and going to die in 40 years later. And really, that was really big motivation, because a lot of people don't want to talk about dying, which is another taboo. And they think, don't worry, I'll live to 100 or 150 or whatever, you know. And they just don't want to talk about it. They avoid it. And by avoiding it, you don't live comprehensively. You don't plan the number of days and what you're going to do. So for me, that was a big realization that while you are still alive, you have to do something. And why toilets? One day I read the newspaper, and the Prime Minister of Singapore said we should measure our graciousness according to the cleanliness of our public toilet. And I thought, you know, I guess nobody will do this. I better do it. So it's been sad 20 years now, 20 years.
And I also think you talked there in what you were saying about the importance of toilets in more than one way, because they also are at the core of so many other issues around poverty. Can you just expand on some of that? Because I'm sure that that is also some of what you use within your advocacy messaging.
Yes, so toilets, not having toilets affect cleanliness of water, and when you cannot use the water, then it creates diseases, and the flies transmit the diseases, and the ponds, the river, the lake, they all transmit diseases. So 50% of all hospital beds in developing countries are occupied by waterborne diseases patients. So why do we wait till people are sick before we take action? Curing people costs a lot of money. Actually, the toilet is the cheapest medicine in the world. It prevents, but you cannot count how many people you have prevented from being sick, but you can count how many people you can cure. And that's why donors prefer to cure than to prevent, which is kind of oxymoron. So what you need to do is to educate people. The other one is ladies are queuing up for toilet all their life because the architecture of the ladies' toilet is too small. The toilet was designed like that before the woman liberation, but after the woman liberation, the woman is liberated, but the toilet is not liberated. So now we are changing the law in all the different countries to make sure that the toilets are large enough to put more cubicles to compensate for the lack of urinals in the ladies. And we managed to change the law in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in federal building in America, and I hope to do that in Australia as well. If somebody will come and work together with me, we can lobby that. Basically, what I like to share is that the other people which you want to mobilize, they may not be interested in your cause. They don't have to. You have to make them interested to do and achieve those things that they want to do. For example, politicians join sanitation because they want to be popular. So if they win votes, then they are your partner. Movie stars, singers, celebrities want a good profile, so they join you. right? But you have to build a very big profile for them. So always work on how to make somebody better in their own ways so that they can join in your course. Academia, professors, they may not be interested in toilet. They're interested in tenure. If they don't publish, they perish. So if they research on sanitation, on hand washing, on the related disease or the economics, these publications gets a lot of readership nowadays because of the World Toilet Organization and the World Toilet Day's legitimacy. So the academia come for tenure, and it's a win-win situation. They also come for sanitation, but tenure first, right? For politicians, vote first. And for fundraising, it's also that this thing is now very popular and it becomes easier to fundraise. And the NGOs start to switch, not just doing water, but they also do water and sanitation. So people don't need to be interested in your mission first. They need to be interested in their mission, and you need to be interested in their mission. And if you talk their language, everybody join in.
Which is a very useful point to make, and I think we can all connect with that about understanding other people's needs and how you meet those needs in engaging them with your cause. And I can see that with arguments like 50% of all hospital beds in developing countries being, having people in them who are there because of dirty water and lack of sanitation, then obviously those are arguments that would work very well with politicians looking to have an impact. And you're beginning to move into, I suppose, also this is the fundraising conference, and so I suppose a lot of people out there will be interested in kind of how you fundraise and what you've learned as someone who has moved into fundraising over the last few years, about what makes fundraising work for you.
For me, I'm not a professional fundraiser, and so I don't have methods. I really go to the fundraising conference to learn from you guys how to fundraise. But in reality, what I do is I go speaking everywhere. And as I speak, people come forward after the talk. Perhaps after this webinar, it could happen. Then they say, I like to work with you. So by speaking everywhere, people come forward. And then these are self-selected people and highly motivated people, and you don't have to push and don't have to have a high attrition rate for your effort, because you have to keep on researching and targeting people who might not want to do what you want to do. So my strategy is to go out there, and also in the media, when we give a lot of reports, a lot of press release and conferences, then when people read about it, they contact me. And so these are self-selecting people, and it works much better like that. Even volunteers and donors also, we get calls from donors who says that we like your cause, can you write a proposal to us, and these are the guidelines. And of course, I meet fundraisers who says that storytellings are very, very important, and I'm beginning to learn from them how to ask. For a very long time, I was very shy to ask, because I think, the friendship is so good, relationship is good. If you start asking, maybe spoil the relationship. So I have a lot of very good friends in very relevant positions, but I have to start to have more audacity to ask. Yeah.
I can hardly believe that you had to be more outgoing, Jack. You've obviously overcome that hurdle in the recent past. I'm interested when, I mean, a lot of the people on this listening in would love it if people spontaneously came up and said they'd love to support their cause. Um, what is it? And I would say to anybody who's listening, if you have a specific question for Jack, that do feel free to sort of pop it into the question section. But Jack, when those donors talk to you, what do you think it is about your message that particularly connects with them? What elements of your message is it that you hear them replaying back to you?
So recently I was talking to a nutrition company, a company that is producing vitamins in Holland, very, very big company. And he was saying, I need you to help us because you know how to create a movement. And a movement is very, very different from an NGO because an NGO is a direct service provider. A movement is like a religion. You make everybody believe it, and then you empower everybody. And when it's more legitimate, then the tide raises all ships. So you cannot think about yourself if you are a movement. You have to think about every stakeholder. So for nutrition in India, it says this is the a much faster approach. And then after that, of course, the individual NGO or companies or local leaders in villages, in blocks, in districts, in states can join in. So that is one angle. The other angle is that people who are like detergent supplier, toilet paper suppliers, sanitary ware, they would be very interested because this is aligned with their image. So we've got, for example, potpourri, which is something that you put in the toilet and smells very well. After every visit to the toilet, you don't want the next visitor to suffer. So you spray something, and they are our sponsors. So they came forward themselves, right? And Reckitt Benckiser doing Dettol and Harpic, they came to us. So these are unsolicited because, as I explained to you, I look like an extrovert, but actually I'm very shy in asking for money. I'm not shy in talking to anybody about anything, but I'm kind of like always feeling that will the relationship be bad. But recently, when I was in the fundraising conference, they told me that if you ask somebody, it means that you're giving them the privilege and you're helping them do their work. So I'm trying to adjust my brain and rewire it a little bit. But friends, I have a lot. So I think that this, like Gates Foundation, they wrote to me and they say, why don't you apply for a grant? And I say, yeah, I would like to do the advocacy. And we met in India and they say, how much do you want? And I don't know how much. I just say maybe $250,000. And then I wrote in a piece of paper why I need it. And it says, oh, you didn't have a consultant. So I guess you need another 20,000. We'll give you 270. So that kind of a conversation, like they are teaching me, right? So I'm still learning.
Just going back to something you said there, you were talking about creating a movement, and you started to talk about some of the elements that are involved. It's a conversation I hear a lot of people having at the moment, but not necessarily with a terribly great level of knowledge about exactly how you do that. I'm interested in just a little bit more detail around what the elements that you see are very important in creating a movement, and how you empower everyone, and also importantly, I think how the new potential of online and digital plays into that.
So imagine that a mother has many children, and let's say also a lazy husband, and the mother would be the one who is the support system who is taking care of whether people are sick, how to give them diarrhea medicine, and she don't know. Yeah, she don't know. Before she was a mother, she don't know anything how to handle family finances, health, emotional stress, whatever. She don't know, but she has to know because she wants the children to all grow up well and strong. Now the children are like the members. They are the one whose success is going to be measured. So later on, when the mother is successful, she says, my daughter is now a lawyer, my son is doing business, my husband is also very successful. But she don't say, it's because of me. She never say that. So this is the kind of work that a movement do, because the success of a movement is the churches are full, and the churches and the temples are enjoying all the fellowship. But the guy who started the movement, he's a background noise. So if you can see yourself that way, then you are a service for everybody. And of course, in the ecosystem, you need the guy who implement it, you need the churches, but you also need the movement. And the movement doesn't start with, it's not alive with one person. It's the message and not the person. So along the way, it's also very, very important to keep your ego intact so that you don't think it's about you, it's about the mission. And that's really quite a different ball game, but you need to do it so that other people, your peers, also benefit. And your peers are not your competitor. Your peers are the people who share the same vision of getting rid of the problem. So the more people doing the same thing, the faster the problem go away. So if we see it that way, then we would be very loving to all the other people in our sector, and we can collaborate with them.
Great, and so and demonstrating there a good way. I like your analogy of the mother and the sort of background noise, and not claiming the credit and being too egotistical about it. So I think they're all good lessons for building a movement. When you talk about collaborators as well, you talked quite a bit there about commercial partners. Are there also charity collaborators within the movement who are useful, and are you looking for more charity collaborators? What
Yes,
role
actually,
can they play?
Yeah, I really want to, and I spoke at the Sydney's Rotary International annual meeting a few years ago to 14,000 Rotarians leaders, and those the response was very, very good. So we just saw that 2024 Singapore is hosting the Rotarian annual meeting with 25,000 delegates, the biggest ever. And we want to make sanitation this big driver. So Rotary Club is actually quite large. Like they're probably the second largest group of people next to the UN as an NGO. Then if we can mobilize every club to take care of sanitation, then we could have, for example, a program to build 1 million rural school toilets, and or 100 million. That's something you can break into single school, and $5,000, $2,000, $10,000, all different kinds, depending on how big it is. And I think very, very manageable. So with the Rotary Club money, you can, of course, leverage the charity foundation to partner in, because donors like to co-fund. They don't like to go alone, right? So using the leverage model, you could use small money to leverage medium-sized money to leverage large money, and corporations can come in. And foundation, I guess I'm not very familiar with fundraising with foundation, but they all have their pet project. And the important thing, I think, is to add sanitation into their pet project, because most of them likes education or children. And I have experience talking to some banks, and they say, you know, I really like what you're doing, but we don't like brown issues. We like blue and green issues, because our brand will look so nice when it is blue and green, like trees, like environment, like climate change. But you know, you are talking about shit. I'm very sorry. It just spoil our brand image. And so, how do you change that to an appeal that actually this is about children, and this is about dignity of women? So in 2019, I am now planning to make a Music for Dignity concert in Carnegie Hall in New York with 250 musicians. Half of them are orchestra musicians from the top orchestra in the world, like Boston Symphony, New York Philharmonic, Berlin Metropolitan, and all these people. They volunteer for free. And then half of them are choir singer, and we're going to sing, play the piece Kamima Burana, with very powerful music, for the dignity of sanitation, and to raise the profile of sanitation from unspeakable to Carnegie Hall, with invitation to royalties, top CEOs, foundation chief, UN Deputy Sec-Gen. So all these people would come to that place to grace it, such that they say once again that toilet is not lowly, it is dignity, and playing to that music. So how do I fundraise? I first dream of this amazing event, and then I start learning how to fundraise, because the first donation is already there, all the musicians, 250 of them. So the second donation is the hall, and then the third donation is the real money that comes to World Health Organization. You guys can also join me if you like.
Sounds like a great event to be at, Jack. We'll just have to get to Carnegie Hall. So just as a bit of background for our understanding, I mean, when you talk about your funding as an organization and the World WTO, how does your funding split out between government funding versus corporates versus fundraising income, roughly? I mean, which of those is most important to you?
We almost don't get any government fundraising after the first time, because we don't know how to reach out to them. We get a lot of corporates coming on, because CSR is now a very important part of every company. If you don't have a sustainability report that is real, you can't just send your staff to paint old folks' homes and do tokenism. People don't like it. It's not the external people don't like it. Your staff don't like it. And if you don't do real things, that if you are not a real good company, not kind to society, you can't retain your talent, and the staff are going to leave you. So these are very real. We are talking about millennials, we are talking about young people, we're also talking about matured people who don't want to work for companies who are only greedy, So I think companies find us very interesting, because the amount of media publicity is very, very large. Family foundations, some of them, but government, very, very few. Mostly the government would like to open door and let us come to their location and do it rather than give us money. So the collaboration is the permission to serve them and their community.
Yeah. Okay. So, so in a way, the easiest partners for you are usually the commercial partners that help leverage the outcomes together. Is that what
But
I'm
the
hearing?
largest, but the largest amount of money is actually foreign aid money. Per year, there's about $150 billion of foreign aid. So I'm trying to convert that money, at least 10-20% of that money, into business market-based solutions. So what I saw is that with this $150 billion of donation every year, it is actually not working very well. The strange thing is that fundraiser, NGOs, thinks they are competing with one another. And this is duplication, this is wastages. Imagine that a community needs 20 products and services: water, sanitation, energy, healthcare, education, housing, fast-moving consumer goods, logistic, microfinance, Wi-Fi, and all these things. And if we were to deliver every of their services in one distribution channel, then we would be able to cut 19 other distribution channel if it's assuming 20 products. So that would be efficiency, but that requires people to collaborate, trust, and create ecosystem. So now I'm starting a second movement called the BOP Hub, Base of Pyramid Hub. And this second movement is to address poverty and to end it comprehensively by teaching the people to do business themselves and not to collect donation, but to collect investment. The best investment are from the philanthropists, because they don't mind losing it, but they mind if it doesn't create a sustainable impact. So if we convert the philanthropist money from donation to investment in business model, they don't need their money back. They just want to know that their money is delivering it sustainably, and only businesses can solve this problem. So we can teach the poor to do small business, to sell solar lamps, to sell cook stoves, to sell toilets, to sell filtered water, and to teach them how to make more money by cutting middlemen, helping them to plant higher value crop. Don't always plant rice. Why don't you plant tomato? Why don't you plant Brussels sprouts? And seeds technology and drip irrigation. Don't use too much pesticide, just the right amount, fertilizer. All this education the farmers need. And if we were to be able to get all the knowledge that is available and put them into open source ecosystem, then we can deliver all together joint effort and no more competitor. Everyone is a collaborator because our mission is higher than ourselves. So we do not want to go on survival mode only to say my NGO has to build an empire and the other NGO sucks and is not as good as us. No, we want to say everybody is trying to solve the problem. Whether you work with me or not is very good. You are doing something to solve the problem. However, takes those people into an ecosystem, may not need to be the one directly doing what you are doing, but from other sector, across geography, across sector, and you will find that the efficiency is amazing. Singapore turned from a third world country to a first world country in 25 years. 1965 was really poor. I grew up in 1957, I was born. And I saw the country transform amazingly fast because people do small businesses. We do not rely on donation. We rely on job creation, investment. And I think this is the new trend. And if you were to look at the donors, the foundation, the foreign aid, they're very, very tired of doling out money. And the pie is shrinking. And what are they putting out? Investment. And even venture capitalists, impact investor, they all want to invest money to end poverty, to solve social problem, to solve every of your uh, agenda, but do it either fully market-based or half or even a semblance of it. Start doing it and you realize that market solve problem better. You might even be able to partner with multinationals because most of them are very good at marketing. So work together and align all the mission. I think poverty can end with the SDG goals achieved only if we collaborate. That's goal number 17. If we don't collaborate, I don't think we can reach those goals.
And importantly, to your point there, to collaborate, you have to be talking about higher level vision and mission that actually unites people around a common desire for a common outcome and allows everybody in as an equal partner in that collaboration as well, whatever they bring to the party.
Yes.
You make some very strong points there that are obviously backed up by the power of microfinance and the fact that very small investments with people in poverty can make a big impact at that level. So I'm interested, just slightly changing the topic, to Australia. I mean, you were here recently, as you said, on the 20th for the World Toilet Day and conference down in Melbourne. I'm interested in your observations about Australia as a market in inverted commas, and what you see that is sort of different about Australia or unique about Australia from your perspective.
Yeah, I think Australia is very interested in international issues, their own domestic issues, and also the Pacific Islands issue. So one of the little known fact is that I am actually a village chief in Samoa. So how did I become a village chief in Samoa? Samoa is an island, a few islands near New Zealand. And the Prime Minister of Samoa told me that there's a village there called Toilet, and it's the only village in the world that has the name Toilet Village. So he wants me to come and receive a honorary Matai title, and I went with my wife and I became known as the Tui Falibao. So Australian relationship with the Pacific Islands are very interesting because these are very few very small population, but many countries, and the population could range from like 30,000 people to 500,000 people. So Samoa, I think, has only 170,000 people. So you've got Fiji and Solomon Islands and all the rest, Kiribati and all that. So if you think about Australia, actually we would think about Australasia and Oceania, yeah. And the nature of philanthropy could be around this area. The other one is about the local Aborigines. I spoke to them, and this problem seems to be not solvable because although in every speech they always say we honor the land of the ancestor and all that, but it seems to be not really doing things that help the local Aborigines help themselves. So I went to Alice Spring and I see the government washing the laundry for the Aboriginal family, and on Sunday morning bringing their children for picnic while their parents are drunk and giving them money to buy liquor. I don't think these are all market-based solutions. You have to change that. You have to give them their pride and respect of themselves and their identity, and then they will do little businesses and become good role model for the next generation. Whatever has happened is a bad history, but we have to solve it and have a new approach. So those giving freebies sometimes is even worse than not giving.
Thanks, Jack. Always good to get the perspective of someone external to Australia about Australia and reminders of priorities that sometimes we're missing. Just talking lastly, really about the fundraising conference in March in Sydney. Everybody comes, I suppose, with a slight learning objective in mind. I'm interested to know what you're looking forward to potentially finding out and learning from the fundraising conference.
Yeah, I want to learn how to brainwash myself, because I have this apprehension in asking a big amount of money. Strangely, I have absolutely no shame in asking corporates, because I think they get a benefit from me. But I don't know how to ask foundations, and I absolutely don't know how to ask government. So I want to learn that. And I think that the relationship and the networking will be the highest value in such a conference, because people feel close once they have face-to-face meeting. The more important thing is after that, how to follow up and how to continue that relationship in the competition of time. Every day your calendar is full, but you have to find a way to stay in touch. And I think those relationships can only happen when you are inside atmosphere, because in the conference like this one that you are organizing is an atmosphere where people are looking to bond. If you go to their office, the mood is very different. So I think it's important that you're hosting such events.
Well, thank you very much for that, Jack. And I suppose that reflects back on the very beginning when I introduced the fact that I met you at in Holland, and you know, I was inspired by hearing you speak. And as someone on the committee, I came back and said, we have to have Jack come and talk at the conference. So it's great to have you here. But it also reminds me of all the great conversations I had in Holland, and how difficult it is then over the distance to keep those going. But what a great dynamic moment in time it is when you're amongst people with like-minded people who want to sort of talk and network. So it's a great opportunity. And a good way for us to sort of segue into saying thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you in March. It's been a terrific webinar. We're grateful for you to share, for you sharing your experience and expertise. Can't wait to hear more in March at the conference. And personally, I'm going to be out there trying to get as many establishments between now and then as possible to stop calling a toilet a bathroom or a restroom or one of these other words that you use.
Dunny. A dunny.
Yeah, we need to tell them it's a dunny, and turn that blue and green into brown. So I'm part of the movement now. I feel converted. So thanks very much for your time. We know how busy you are, so it's great. I'll throw in another reminder about the early bird registration. Don't miss that. Closes next Friday. And this presentation brings our webinar series to an end. I might just switch you off for a minute there and share my screen if that's all right with you.
Okay.
Jack?
Thank you, everybody, for joining the bowel movement.
And thank you everybody for being along today. Thank you for this webinar series has now ended for 2017. So thanks to all the people who've taken part this year. Thanks once again for everybody who's been involved in putting this together. Thank you Go Fundraise, without whom it would have been impossible to put all these webinars together. We wish everybody a happy and festive season coming up, and look forward to seeing as many as possible of you in March at the Fundraising Institute Conference in Sydney. And with no further ado, I'll say thank you very much everyone, and have a great day. So long. Cheers.